El Instituto Politécnico Nacional les da la más cordial bienvenida a la conferencia magistral titulada Inteligencia Artificial y Ciencia de Datos, impartida por el doctor Matan Gavish. Es un gusto contar con su asistencia. Sean todos bienvenidos. Tengo el honor de presentar al maestro Cristian Francisco Cadena Ayala. Él es subdirector de gestión de la innovación del Instituto Politécnico Nacional.
Gracias.
Y a Karen Rosov, directora de los Amigos Mexicanos de la Universidad Hebrea de Jerusalén. Maestro Cristian, sea tan amable en dirigirnos su mensaje de bienvenida. Adelante.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días, distinguidos representantes de la Universidad Hebrea de Jerusalén, comunidad politécnica, estimado ponente, investigadores, estudiantes y acompañantes y demás asistentes y amigos. Es un verdadero honor para mí darles la bienvenida a este importante evento que congrega en torno a un tema tan fascinante y tan actual como lo es la inteligencia artificial y la ciencia de datos. El día de hoy, dos instituciones unen esfuerzos y este esfuerzo nos ayuda a explorar y reflexionar sobre los avances, sobre los desafíos y oportunidades que pueden traer estos temas. Este tema que se encuentra en boga, que es parte de un desarrollo tecnológico, pero que también son elementos de un desarrollo económico y social. La inteligencia artificial no solo está definiendo los límites de lo posible en campos como la ingeniería, la medicina, el software y en general de todas las áreas del conocimiento. En ese sentido, eventos como el que hoy nos reúne nos invita a reflexionar, nos invita a replantearnos los fundamentos éticos, morales y profesionales del alcance que puede tener este tema tan interesante. Durante esta próxima hora vamos a tener la oportunidad de escuchar de la mano de un experto como es el doctor Matan Gavish, que nos está acompañando hoy con un tema tan interesante y tan relevante. Quiero también expresar mi más sincera felicitaciones a la Universidad Hebrea por sus primeros 100 años de generación de conocimiento, de transmisión del mismo y generación de este bienestar social. Sin más preámbulo, quiero dar la palabra a Karen Rosov, directora de la Asociación Amigos Mexicanos de la Universidad Hebrea de Jerusalén. Gracias, Karen.
Muchas gracias. Yo soy directora de los Amigos Mexicanos de la Universidad Hebrea de Jerusalén. Le agradezco al maestro Cristian y al Politécnico por invitarnos. Esperamos que este sea el inicio de una larga relación juntos y que aprendan de nosotros tanto como nosotros estamos aprendiendo de ustedes. Le voy a dar la palabra al profesor Matan Gavish. La ponencia va a ser en inglés, entonces si tienen alguna duda, si alguien no entiende, con muchísimo gusto los apoyamos. Muchas gracias, bienvenidos a todos. Matan.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to meet you. Unfortunately, I do not speak Spanish, and so we have champions here that can help us translate. Let me briefly introduce myself. Actually, I have a slide for this. Maybe I've been introduced 3 times by now, I'm not sure. So I'm a professor of computer science in Hebrew University, which is a coincidence because I never took a computer science course in my life. I trained in mathematics and physics, and then more mathematics, and then statistics. And so while I was doing my PhD, people started calling it data science, and so now I'm a data scientist. I've started a track in Hebrew University. It's a double major between computer science and statistics for data science, and actually now I'm on sabbatical because I have surrendered to the bitter fate of an entrepreneur. I'm now founder and CEO of a startup company, which is quite strange if you're an academic. So I have a talk for you. Let's go back. I can talk, if you want, about data science and statistics and things that have happened in the world, but on the way here, I thought I'd much rather have a conversation with you guys. And so let's see how that works. I'll tell you some things that might be interesting for you to ask, and then we can have a conversation. And if that doesn't work, then we have a talk. I did my PhD at Stanford in statistics, and that meant that I had to kind of compete in the Olympics. This is the top-rated department in this field, and so we can talk about that if you want, about let's say academic trajectory that goes from mathematics to statistics and data science and so on. Happy to talk about academia and the role of academia now. You must have noticed that things are changing very rapidly in universities. You may have noticed this. At least in Hebrew University, people learn online more, they meet on campus less. Things have happened since the COVID pandemic that really changed academia. So this is an interesting topic for conversation. I've been told that many of you are PhD students, and so we can talk about an academic career and what it means, and also the connection between industry and academia. When I was in the United States, I had too many children and I had to work so that I can feed them, and so I went to work for Google in Mountain View. And then finally, entrepreneurship. If that is something that's interesting for you, apparently this is what I'm doing now. I found myself actually building a company that's becoming larger and larger. So all of these things I'm happy to talk about. So let's, if there's a microphone, we can take it around. If that doesn't work, then we can have a talk and talk about data science and statistics, which may also be interesting. Okay. Huh? Oh, he's getting the microphone.
Buenas tardes. Quisiera saber si saliendo de la carrera, tú ya tienes buenas bases para empezar a trabajar o necesitas ir adquiriendo todavía más conceptos, una maestría o algo para poder ejercer bien tu carrera y tus conocimientos.
What career, I mean, the schooling, if you have the knowledge to start working, or you need something else, or like a doctorate?
So at the end of so are we talking a PhD or a bachelor's? The end of which degree?
Sí, tu carrera with university.
So that's a bachelor's.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so maybe the question is, you take a bachelor's in computer science and then you want to work as an engineer or a scientist. Do you have anything that you need? Maybe that's a question. Yes. My perspective is that the main thing that you get in your university degree is the ability to learn very quickly. You may have noticed that the world is changing around us very quickly today, and this is doubly true in computer science. The way that software engineering is done is changing very rapidly. Are you aware of that? The way that AI and large language models have really changed how software is being developed and built. If you look at the curriculum of a computer science degree, I expect that you took mathematics, maybe you took linear algebra, and calculus, and algorithms, and data structures, and so on. And so you may have asked yourself why. That's a very common question. And so one reason is that you learn to think and you learn to learn very quickly. But one thing that is clear is that no one can teach today the software engineering abilities that will be valid in 5 years, because no one knows what they are. Okay? In my company, we have software engineers, of course, and they are quite confused because every week you wake up and there is something new in the way that AI is used to build software. It used to be that you're this very smart guy or girl and you can write a lot of code and then you can build the systems. And all of a sudden, this is not how you win in software engineering. You win by creating software architecture that AI can leverage. You win by learning very rapidly new tools that come out all of the time. And maybe a word about that. I believe that we're all as human beings and definitely as computer scientists being overwhelmed by the amount of information that we are bombarded with, and definitely overwhelmed by the pace of change. You think about how people developed. We didn't have to learn so many things during our lifetime because most of human existence of the planet, the life of our generation was pretty much like the life of the previous generation and so on. You may have noticed that now we are in a mixer. We are in a time wrap. Something very strange is happening in the sense that we have to learn all the time and the pace is increasing. So maybe you took a calculus class and you know about the exponential function, and you know something about the exponential function is that the derivative of an exponential function is also exponential. The pace itself is accelerating, and the pace of the change of the pace is accelerating, and so on. We are now in that time in history. It did, yes, it's like we took off, yeah? It didn't used to be like that even 50 years ago, not to mention 200 years ago. And cognitively, I believe it's quite challenging to live like that. So if you are a young guy or girl and you want to go into software, the one thing that you have to do is learn how to learn very quickly. And also let go of preconceptions very quickly. For instance, I'm 46. I feel like a dinosaur in the digital world. I do. Because WhatsApp started when I was in my 30s or something, and then I discovered there is a whole body language in WhatsApp. You cannot send someone a red heart. It has to be a purple heart. And if there is a period at the end of the sentence, it's very meaningful. And the time that it takes for me to respond is very meaningful. It was very confusing for me. Because effectively, because I'm so old, I'm a digital immigrant. Now, the bad news is that this is going to happen to you too. If you look at the pace of change, if you look at how many years it takes for someone to feel like a digital immigrant, you see that it went from 50 to 30 to 10 to 5, and kids who are now maybe 17 years old talk about other kids who are 23 years old and say, those are dinosaurs. What do they know about digital life? And this is 5 years, yeah? And so the same thing happens to us as human beings in our digital society, and the same thing happens for engineers. It's not such a great experience sometimes being an engineer that's now in their 40s, because you're overtaken by technology that you thought was there to help you. And software engineers thought, you know, I'm on the winning side of history. I'm a software engineer. And all of a sudden, they feel that they may be replaced. They have to learn very quickly. And so coming back to your question, the ability to learn is the one thing that you can practice now. And my thinking about a bachelor's degree is that this is like it's a closed environment. It's like a sandbox. You take a couple of years away from anything else, and you can learn and you can develop yourself as a scholar and as an engineer, as a scientist, as a person. And so I really believe that the one thing that you should be developing now is the ability to learn and force yourself into uncomfortable situations. For example, as I said, WhatsApp was uncomfortable for me, just as now Instagram is uncomfortable for people. It's crazy. And so as an engineer, I know in software engineers that look at AI tools that are now writing code, and they look at them with disdain, with contempt. It's like an engineer that will be now maybe in their 30s and their 40s, and they say, you know, AI is that it doesn't write good code. This is not quality code. It's not maintainable, it's not scalable, it's not secure. I can write the good code because I'm smart. And history has judged that kind of approach very severely, time and time again. Let me tell you a story. Have you heard about algo trading and people that trade the stock markets with computers? You must have, because most trades now are done by a computer. Very few trades on a stock exchange actually happens because someone thinks that they want to buy a stock. Yes? Someone had to invent this idea. And it happened in the 70s. It was a mathematician that had the idea that one day computers will be able to do, one day in the future, they will be able to do something that we call data science and big data and all of that. They will be able to process massive amounts of stock historic data and take trading decisions. And maybe they will be much better than people. In the beginning, this guy he passed away last year. No one made fun of him anymore because he passed away. I think it was worth $30 billion or something. In the beginning, people made fun of him. They said, I went to Harvard. I have an MBA from Harvard. I can trade the stocks because I'm so smart. And they had this resistance to change. You can see this again and again. We can talk about how this happened 300 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It's an environment of human nature. And so this resistance to change, when it comes to software engineering, is quite dangerous. Because, again, the pace at which AI is now changing, and therefore the profession is now changing, is very rapid. So this was a very long answer to your question. Good, I hope it was helpful. And so put yourself in uncomfortable situations, meaning use the new tools. Use the tools that make you uncomfortable, that you feel resistance to, right? Try to see if you can write an entire software system in 5 hours using AI. Once you try this, it's quite shocking to experience this. If you're someone that maybe you wrote code, you wrote some software projects in your bachelor's, and you try and you discover that if you really get good at it, you can create an entire software system, backend and front-end and application in a couple of hours, you realize that the world has really, really changed. Oh, that's a great question. I like it. It's actually on the board. Does anyone know what is data science? Have you heard the term data science? You have. What is data science? No one knows. Do you have a suggestion? What's that? Mm-hmm.
Disculpen, un favor, les vamos a pedir, como está haciendo la grabación, necesitamos que llegue el micrófono a la persona que va a hacer la pregunta. Aunque nos tardemos un poquito porque si no, no sale en la transmisión ni en la grabación del evento. Se los voy a agradecer mucho.
So we're talking about what is data science.
Again?
He looked quite severe, I'm not sure. That's fine. So the question is, what is data science? You've heard the term, and if you think about it for a second, it's not so easy to define. Is there a difference between statistics and data science? And how about machine learning? And how about AI? You've all heard these terms. It's actually on the title here. Let me tell you how I came across this question. I started a program, a bachelor's program in data science. And as I said before, it was a double major. the students learn statistics in the statistics department, and they learn inference, and they learn hypothesis testing. Have you heard these terms? Sometimes. But they also do the other part of the double major is computer science. And they do the full computer science program with the algorithms and the data structures, and there's a machine learning, predictive machine learning course and all of that. And so they became my private laboratory to understand how people think, young people think about statistics and machine learning today. The first thing to notice is that statistics as a tradition is very, very different to machine learning. Statistics as a tradition is 200 years old, yes? Have you taken some statistics? There's maybe just nod or a little bit. So a statistical question could be, is the vaccine effective? It's a question about the state of the world, and the way that we answer it as statisticians is we collect the data, and then we assume some mathematical model that may or may not be relevant to anything. And then we apply some tests, and there are some theorems about why this test is good, and then we come to a conclusion. And so many of the things you see around you were developed using statistics. It's an incredibly potent tool. It's actually very underappreciated. In the non-English speaking countries, I've found that usually statistics is not a very respected profession. Maybe in Israel, statistics is not as prestigious as computer science. I'm not sure why. I did my PhD in statistics. Statistics created a civilization that is healthy because we understood how to do medicine based on statistics. And it went into agriculture so we could feed everyone, and we can have safe materials and all of that. All of that was statistics. And again, it's like a black sheep. It's underappreciated, but it worked very hard for civilization for decades. On the other hand, you have machine learning. Have you taken a machine learning course, maybe a predictive machine learning course, or not? Have you used Facebook lately? Or have you used an e-commerce like Amazon? Or have you watched Netflix lately? Maybe you have. Every time that you go onto these sites, behind the scene, there's a machine learning algorithm that wants to predict your actions. Yes? The machine learning algorithms for the Facebook feed want to maximize your time in the site. Okay, that's enough to say. Netflix wants to predict what you would like to see. All of this is predictive machine learning. It is not based on a mathematical model. Usually, it is not based on some assumption that this is Gaussian and that is Gaussian. No. And so there is an entire school of predictive machine learning that developed over decades. And it's very different to statistics because it doesn't, it's not based on thinking so much. It's based on compute. And it only became possible when computers were strong enough. You must have heard about Moore's law, this fact that, let's say, computers become twice as powerful every 2 years. Have you heard about that? Can you think about anything else in this civilization that became twice as powerful every 2 years? Imagine that airplanes flew twice as fast every 2 years. That would be scary. Imagine that we would create twice as much food every 2 years. So actually Moore's law and the fact that computers became twice as powerful every 2 years for decades has been the single most meaningful thing in our lifetime. It happened when we were sleeping. 10 years later, computers are 2 to the 10 more powerful. That's a lot. Yeah. So if computers were kind of a nice thing, a gadget in the 80s when I grew up, now in my phone, by the way, this is not a phone. What is that? Do you know what that is? The fact that Rabbi Jobs called this a phone was one of the most sophisticated public relations stunts in history. This is not a phone. This is a computer. Yeah? And fine. And so I'm going around in my pocket with a computer that is incredibly powerful, can do many, many, many things. So back to machine learning, once computer becomes powerful enough, people noticed that they can do predictive machine learning by taking a lot of data and optimizing some function, they didn't have to understand so much. And then there was a prediction. So maybe now I can ask some data from you. Maybe I can take your cookies on your browser, and I can, my machine can predict the next movie that you're going to watch. And I don't have to know about people or about movies, about anything. I don't have to understand. This is very different to statistics. In statistics, we had to understand. Statistics is very scholarly. It came from the Gutenberg era of print, of somebody sitting in the library and scratching their head until they understood. It is really part of the scientific worldview. And so back to what is data science. Actually, let me show you a slide. And if this is not interesting, then somebody has to stop me. This is the chairwoman, this was from 2013, the chairwoman of the ASA, the American Statistical Association. And she wrote an angry column. She said, aren't we data science? Because the data science meme was just starting, and every university opened a data science institute. And sometimes statisticians were not invited to participate. And I will say we, because I do have one of my identities as a statistician, so we became very angry. We have been doing data science for 150 years. If you open a data science institute in university, at least invite us. And so she wrote, aren't we data science? And then somebody retaliated, statistics is the least important part of data science. That's blasphemy. What do you mean? And then this is a famous American statistician from, I think, Carnegie Mellon, Norman Matloff. Statistics is losing ground to computer science. There was some public relations battle. And statistics seems to have been losing. Statistics actually has lost. This battle has been, this is 12 years old, yeah? The battle has been decided, and statistics was the loser. Sorry. What's the big deal about big data? Again, this guy was the chair of the ASA, and so on. Google Trends, machine learning in yellow, linear regression in red. So coming back to this question of what is data science, the first thing to know is that data science is an amalgamation of several different traditions. Data science actually is a public relations stunt by this guy, DJ Patil. You may have not many people know this, but memes, like these ideas, have origins. Here's an example. Have you heard that diamonds are forever? Do you know that this actually has been an advertisement campaign by a diamond company? Yes, so someone thought of the term data science. This was the guy, DJ Patil. He became the US chief data scientist in the White House. There was no such thing as a chief data scientist because there was no such thing as data science. He just came up with the term, and then he convinced President Barack Obama that the US needs to have a chief data scientist. It's true. And then every university started following suit and so on. But what really happened actually was that computers became so strong that it was possible to do things if you knew how to code that statisticians usually could not do. So data scientists, usually they know some statistics, but they are also builders. They can write code, they can program, and they also know some predictive machine learning. So all of these play together. And so back to the question of what is data science, one thing I believe it's important to understand. This is from, by the way, he was so successful, this guy DJ Patil, that the Harvard Business Review published, this is 2019, I think, data scientist, the sexiest job of the 21st century. The whole thing didn't exist just a year prior, yeah? So back to what is data science, and maybe something that I can, some gift that I can offer you, is that there's tons of data. and there's tons of compute. And this is the most meaningful thing that has happened in our lifetime. I'll say this again. The most meaningful thing that has happened in our lifetime, when we slept, we weren't paying attention, is that data became ubiquitous and compute became dirt cheap. Yes? Just as an anecdote, if you go back to popular culture of the 1970s, and you went to someone in the 70s and you said, what will the human condition be in 2025? They would say, we're going to have flying cars. We're going to live on the moon. Look at all the science fiction movies from, okay, so 2025, we're still here, there's still traffic jams, but one thing has really changed, and this is information technology. This is the most meaningful change of our lifetime. And so now, because there's compute and because there's data, somebody who knows how to write code can now do things to data that they could never do with their mind. No statistician with our, however sophisticated, funky model and theorems can do what a 10-year-old or maybe a 15-year-old can do now with a strong enough computer and enough data. And so the reason why this was this war between data science and statistics is that just computers became strong enough. Coming back to my story, in the bachelor's program that I started, I had these students. I'm like their dad. I'm responsible for everything that happens with them. And they took machine learning and they took statistics. And I started noticing that they take questions that you would usually use statistical inference for and apply machine learning. It drove me nuts. For instance, they would take some data about a medicine and they would ask, is the medicine effective? This is the question that you would use statistical inference to answer. Yeah? And the way that they solved the problem, they didn't use a statistical test, they didn't use a t-test. They ran a predictive machine learning algorithm on the one set, and they tried to then, they took the trained model and tried to have a prediction on the other set. And if they could predict on the other set, they would say no difference. And if they cannot predict, they say difference. And I thought, this is really weird. You went through a whole bachelor's in statistics. You were taught about the great works of the great statisticians. You understand the t-test in many dimensions, and you do this. And so what really happened was that I found people, usually I think it's general phenomenon, like to think less if possible. It's much easier to train a model here and then run the prediction here. You don't have to think about whether which model do I take? Do I take a non-parametric test? Or maybe I take a t-test and I assume a Gaussian distribution. Is the data really Gaussian? What about outliers? It's so much easier to just click a button. And so this explains in my mind this decisive victory in the public arena that computer science and machine learning had on statisticians. However, there's a catch. Remember that new technology is always a deal with the devil, always. There is always a price to pay. When I bought my smartphone, I paid the price. I didn't ask. When I gave my kids smartphones, they paid the price. When I started driving a car, there was a price to pay and so on. So can you think, what is the price that we are going to pay as a civilization for the fact that in a few years, no one will know statistics anymore? Mark my words, no one. And when I say no statistics, I don't mean that statistics was forced on you in university, because it doesn't really count. Yeah. Have you heard? Have you met a statistician? Someone who identifies statistics? Maybe they work for the government. Maybe there are some people here. A statistician. This is, this guy is a brain surgeon, and I am a statistician. How do you become a statistician? Usually, a bachelor's is not enough. Usually, you need a master's or a PhD, and then you identify a statistician. So it takes some time to understand this craft. It's a very unique craft, statistics. And very soon we will have no more of these people because nobody wants to learn this. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but why not? And so what is the price that we will pay? When in order to see whether the car is safe or the airplane is safe, somebody would say, okay, let's run a predictive machine learning algorithm. Are you kidding me? Are we going to crash 10,000 airplanes and then discover it is safe or not? So this is something to take home and think about. Statistics, what it does in terms of the DNA of the discipline, what you really learn when you learn statistics is you learn to doubt. You learn to say, there's nothing here. It doesn't work. This is the work of the government drug administration, right? If you invent a medicine and you go to the government and you say, I invented the medicine, I want to sell it to everyone. They will say two things. It is not effective and it is dangerous. Prove to me otherwise. This is how statistics tests are built. You reject the hypothesis until you accept it, yeah? So the government will say, it will kill people until you prove otherwise. And it is not effective. It does nothing. It is a placebo until you prove otherwise. And actually, this perspective on life is very, very useful. This is why you go to the pharmacy and you can buy a medicine and you're quite sure that you won't die. And this is why food is generally safe and cars are generally safe and everything else. It's a very potent worldview. And as we educate young people and we move away from this worldview into don't have to think, put it in the machine, run the algorithm, write the code, it's going to be okay, we're going to pay a price. And my prediction is that we are going to see, not to be a doomsday prophet, but we are going to see more planes falling out of the sky. Mark my words, because we used to train many people in society in this thinking of it is dangerous until proven otherwise. It doesn't work. I can take just a few data points because if I'm now doing a clinical trial, maybe I have 50 data points. I don't have a gazillion data points like I have when I train a machine learning algorithm. I just have 50 data points. And statisticians were masters at extracting the insights from very small data sets and taking very careful conclusions. A statistician would say, I'm pretty sure it is safe, but I'm not that sure. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you what I'm certain of and what I'm uncertain of. This is the scientific discipline. This is how scientists think. And as more and more young people go to machine learning and this part of data science, they don't learn to think that way. And if you look at machine learning algorithms, if any of you have taken a machine learning course, or maybe you wrote code and you created a predictive algorithm, machine learning algorithms usually do not give you confidence intervals. There is a prediction, like I think that your next best movie is going to be Terminator 3, but I can't tell you how certain I am. It's not built into the way that people think about this. It's not built into the courses. It's not built into the code. It's just nowhere there. We just want to predict. And if you can predict, then you're fine. And so the thing about data science is, I believe if you're interested in data science, my advice is you have to be a very strong engineer. You have to know how to write code and handle massive amounts of data. Because if you do not have the competence, the ability to write code and handle massive amounts of data, you are a nobody. It is not interesting. Whatever you have to say in our world is not interesting. However, it is to go to the next level and to become, I believe, a world-class data scientist, it's very important to learn statistics. It's very important to also have this dual personality as someone who's a very careful thinker, always saying, convince me, I don't think it works, being the gatekeeper, which is what statisticians do, and learn how to create quantitative assessments of how sure I am of my prediction, how sure I am that this actually works, which is not part of the machine learning literature at all. So, long answer. You had a question on what you should know to be, which one was it? Sorry. I did a good job. Okay, good. All right. How long do we have? I can keep going for a long time. It's fine. Go ahead. The microphone.
Hi. Apart from the technical skills, what soft skills do you think that are the most important ones in data science?
So go slower for me. What soft skills?
Yes. What soft skills are the most important ones in data science and computer science?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Woo. Okay, so what soft skills do you need? And some of you will become scholars and have an academic career, and some of you will have what we call a career in industry. So maybe I'll answer the question twice. Let's start with industry, actually. Data scientists must be able to communicate with human beings very, very well. It's not usually part of a curriculum of programs that I don't know about you guys, but most programs that I've seen, actually, let's say, most major universities have a program in data science for bachelors and masters, and sometimes even a PhD. And so if you go to, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, whatever, Hebrew, we don't teach students to communicate. But this is very, very important because usually the data scientists has some level of understanding that cannot be communicated. For instance, you work for, give me a large company in Mexico that you admire. A large company anywhere that you admire, you go work for Uber, whatever. Okay, fine. Work for Uber. And you're a data scientist. Okay, what do? There's data, and there's questions to be answered. Some of them have to be answered so people can understand. This is statistical inference, right? We spent $50 million on painting all of the cars pink. Did it do us any good? Did it work? Okay? And you do the analysis and you come with an answer. And then you have to give it to someone who's a decision maker. Must be able to communicate. And then as a data scientist, you will also create a predictive algorithm, and you'll have to announce whether it's working or not. This is really, really hard. Yeah? Let me backtrack. If you are a software engineer and you write code, you might think that the world is kind of neat. Because if you took a computer science bachelor's, you did your algorithms course, maybe you coded in Python, there was a question and answer and question and everything. It was quite hygienic, and it's not like the humanities where there's no clear answer. Here, every question in the test have a clear answer. And then you become a software engineer, and you code, you join a team, and you code a feature, and somebody asks you, does that work? That's a very hard question to answer. When? Does it work under this load? Does it work there is a hacker involved? Does it work on a smartphone, an Android from 10 years ago? And if they're using a Samsung browser, there is such a thing, does it work, and so on. And so understanding when something works is way more complicated than you might think if you're in university. And for a predictive machine learning algorithm, it's even more complicated because it depends on your test set. And so if your test set where you demonstrate performance of your model, your trained model, is not like the real world, then you're deluding yourself. So back to communication, if you're responsible, you'll say, I created this machine learning algorithm, I've tested on this test set. This is what I know, this is what I don't know. And very, very often, people took a machine learning algorithm where the data scientist said, it works, and put it in production, and the whole thing cost $1 gazillion by the next day. See? Because the data that came in was nothing like the test data. So communication. We talked already about the soft skill of learning very rapidly and putting yourself in intellectually uncomfortable situations all the time, because this is life now. This is the world in which we live. I do want to say something for creativity and thinking out of the box. There is a computer scientist I really, really admire. Her name is Joseph Weizenbaum. Have you heard of Weizenbaum? Have you heard of ELIZA, the first chatbot? ELIZA, rings the bell? So if you want to learn some history, computer science history, in the 70s, there was a guy, his name was Joseph Weizenbaum, he was faculty at MIT in Massachusetts, in Boston. And he said, I want to be able to talk to the computer. This was the 70s. People used punch cards to write assembly code, yes? And he was such a genius. He said, I want to be able to converse with the computer. So he wrote a program. The program was called ELIZA. And it became very, very famous because people had this out-of-body experience where they sit in front of a computer terminal, again, the 70s, so there's massive computer rooms, yeah? Sit in front of a terminal and write something in plain text, and the computer would answer. And then have a conversation. And very famously, Weizenbaum had a secretary, and one day he came in the office and the secretary was speaking with ELIZA, and she said, get out, it's a private conversation. Which means that something really remarkable has happened. And we all know this because have you experienced ChatGPT? Have you tried ChatGPT? The same thing, that, there's someone inside, he understands me, she understands me, so we have all experienced that. So ELIZA was the grandmother of ChatGPT. Was the first time that anybody had that crazy idea of conversing with the machine in plain text. By the way, just as an anecdote, in Israel there was a poet in the 70s, and he heard that you can talk to the machine. And because he was a poet and because he was a genius and as an artist, he said, I want to talk to the machine. No one has done this. I want to create new poetry based on talking to the machine. So he would call from Israel to MIT. In the 70s, it was a shit ton of money, long distance. And he said, okay, MIT, can I talk to the machine, please? And he was so incessant, eventually they let him converse with the machine. And after a while, they sent the punch cards to Israel. There was only one computer in Israel. And he actually had a few sessions with the machine, and he wrote an entire poetry book based on his conversations with the machine. This is a genius in the 70s. Back to Weizenbaum. Weizenbaum wrote ELIZA, and he also wrote a book that I really, really highly recommend. The book is called Computing Power and Human Reason. Computing Power and Human Reason. You have not heard about this book, but it is very, very good. And he said, this is a sentence from the book, he said, the games that the computer plays are limited only by the boundaries of human imagination. Think about that for a second. The games that the computer plays are limited only by the boundaries of human imagination. Anything that we can imagine can be built on a computer. And in that sense, we are all living in a very strange time. Because if you're in the Middle Ages and you have dreams and you imagine things, this is all you're ever going to have. Maybe you can become an artist and paint them. Maybe you can write some poetry. But this is basically it. But now, you have, maybe this is news to you, but you, boys and girls, you are going to Hogwarts. This is Hogwarts. You know Hogwarts? Hogwarts. So, news, you are now students at Hogwarts. And why? What is Hogwarts? This myth, this legend of a wizard, the wizards, they say something and then reality becomes, yeah? I say some words in a magic language and then something happens. Okay, this language is called Python. You say some words in a magic language and then something happens, which is really cool. You have an idea about something that you want to do. You want to interact with a computer in a certain way. You want to create a system that does something. You want robots to move in 3D. You want your fridge to talk to the satellite. You want to create a social network of people that mobilize for some cause. All you have to do is speak a few words in Python. And this is new in the human experience. This is just a matter of the last couple of decades. And as we just said, it's becoming, I need some water. It's becoming easier and easier. So once upon a time, you had to write in C, which is a grueling experience. And now we can do Python and as we speak, we can write in English, basically. You can just use Spanish, you can use Spanish, and then there is a computer system that does what you wanted. And if that is not magic, I don't know what is magic. And so back to a soft skill, the world in which we live now gives better and more dividends to imagination. Because the technical part of computer science is becoming easier and easier very rapidly. I employ 12 engineers. They are doing the work that took 500 engineers 20 years ago and 100 engineers 10 years ago. That is a fact. And I ask anyone who's working in software now. It's easier and easier. And so if things are becoming easier and easier to build, then what matters is the ability to think about what to build, the ability to imagine. And so if it were up to, unfortunately, it's not up to me. If it were up to me, I would add to computer science training courses from humanities and from arts to foster creative thinking and to foster thinking out of the box, because this is becoming more and more important. And if you just walk the walk and if you can just think in terms of how other people told you to think, you are using the magic language in a very boring way. So this is on soft skills. You had another part. Oh, I said, yeah, that's enough. If you want to have an answer about academia, then we can do this offline. No?
So, well, I have two questions. First, how long do you think the AI is going to be like worth it? Or do you think it could be like replaced for something else in the future? And the second question is, what was your motivation for like studying or investigating about machine learning, data science, or AI? And what things do you think can motivate us, like the students, for like study the AI, or in the future be like an engineer that works with AI?
So repeat the second question for me. How to learn AI as an engineer? Is that the question? Or can you repeat that?
Yes,
pretty much.
basically.
How to go about learning how to use AI? Or what academic disciplines do you need?
Maybe the knowledge.
I see.
more or less.
That's a very hard question and no one knows. One thing to know about academia is that academia is a very conservative institution. We professors, we are paid to keep the heritage and keep preserve the sacred knowledge. Now, when the world is changing very rapidly, this may not be an optimal way to go about things. And so people who are writing the curriculum now, deciding what students take in courses, they have a generation gap. And maybe we are optimizing for 200 years ago. Maybe we're optimizing for 50 years ago. And I'm sharing this because in my university, these are very fierce discussions and conversations. How do we teach computer science? Do we need algorithms and data structures and calculus and linear algebra? Or maybe we just need machine learning. Machine learning, do we need to teach classical machine learning like the machine learning of 10, 15, 20 years ago? Or do we go for only deep nets? See? And many things are changing very quickly. For example, natural language processing used to be the domain of linguists. You had to be a student of human language in order to create code that does natural language models. It's no longer the case. You need a lot of data, you need a very large computer, you need a lot of money, and that's it. Yeah. So how to learn this? The first thing, my first answer is actually to just do. If you take a few months of your life and dedicate yourself to building things with AI, you will learn a lot. And there is something to be said in computer science training too about just practical experience. It's not traditionally part of the training. Usually you have some homework, you have some tests, and then maybe someone else will do the practical part. Maybe that needs to change a little bit. I mentioned statistics. Understanding when something works and when something does not work, I think is a very, as I mentioned before, important skill. So the model can be very, very complicated beyond the grasp of human understanding. But if you have some knowledge of statistics, then you can do your own experiments. Can I trust this thing? How often does it work? How can I draw a conclusion from how this works on a test set to how this will work in the wild? These are very hard things to understand, and you need some quantitative training, which is why I do believe that calculus and quantitative training is still an important part of the curriculum. I have a feeling I didn't answer the question at all. That's good? Yeah? Yes. Yes. We're good? Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
¿Le pasas el micrófono a Corina?
Agradecemos la excelente participación del doctor Matan y le hacemos entrega de un reconocimiento por parte del maestro Cristian.
Bien, quiero agradecer al doctor Matan Gavish por esta ponencia y a nombre del Instituto Politécnico Nacional y a través de la Secretaría de Innovación e Integración Social, otorga el presente reconocimiento a doctor Matan Gavish por haber impartido la plática Inteligencia Artificial y Ciencia de Datos el día 4 de abril del presente. Ciudad de México, abril 2025, la técnica al servicio de la patria. Además, queremos entregarle un pequeño obsequio. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Y nos ponemos de pie, por favor, para brindarle un fuerte huelum. A la cuenta de 3. 1, 2, 3.
Politécnico, Gloria.
Los invitamos a todos a pasar al frente para realizar una foto grupal.
Vamos a un bocadillo.
Pasen, por favor, todos los alumnos enfrente. Entonces sí, así como nos explican. Así como están, pero agrúpense, por favor.
Okay. Muy bien, claro. Sí. Acérquense. Adelante, sí, sí. Mayra, ven. Ayúdame. Y te pasa también.